and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
Good evening and welcome to BronxTalk, now in its 17th year, one of the city's longest running TV talk shows. Because of the holiday, we're on tape tonight, so we will not be taking your phone calls, but you can always email comments to us at bronxtalk@hotmail.com, and we'll read those on the air during a future edition of our program. Well, the debate over health care continues to rage in this country, but lost in the discussion of who's paying for what is a down-to-earth discussion about care and who delivers it. Of course, your doctor is vital, but the people who are closest to patients and spend the most time caring for patients are nurses. Their abilities and comportment is vital to your hospital stay, yet there's an ongoing nursing shortage, and I'm willing to bet very few of us really know how they're trained and prepared to do some of the most important work in our society. And if you doubt that, just ask anyone who's been through a hospital stay about the importance of the nurses who cared for them. Tonight we meet two of the Monroe College nursing faculty to talk about the professional trends toward male nurses and some of the most incredible teaching technology available happening right here in the Bronx. Please join me in welcoming nursing professor Rondine Douglas. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. And also a nursing professor at Monroe, Salil Akhtar. Good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I don't know who wants to weigh in on this, but I talked about the shortage of nursing. We'll start with you, Professor Akhtar. Why is there a shortage of nurses when we all know we need them?
Well, currently, the nurses that are in the field, they are, maybe in their 50s and 60s, and they're actually ready to retire, some of which who have prolonged retirement. So they are getting ready to retire, and not enough nurses have been entering into the field to replace the ones that will be retiring.
Mm-hmm. Is this because of a lack of available slots in the teaching facilities, or is it because there hasn't been enough interest from the general public to take it up as a career?
It's actually a dual-faceted problem, partly because of not enough nursing faculty to teach nursing students.
Nursing faculty.
Right.
That was one thing I didn't ask.
Yeah. So partly due to that, and as well as not enough potential nursing students entering into the profession. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, college students do not feel that nursing is an area that they would want to pursue.
Mm-hmm. And maybe it never occurs to them.
Right.
Is it difficult to inspire young people to say, I want to be a nurse?
Not at all. You have a lot of high school students that are already interested in becoming nurses, and nursing is such a great profession. It's such a rewarding profession, and a lot of students become interested in it at a very young age. Students in high school, we encourage them to apply if you're interested to college and to nursing schools.
Why is it a great profession? I mean, there are long hours. I realize the rewards are one would think considerable when you see people heal, but it can be difficult work. So what is great about it for you?
It's funny that you say that. A girlfriend and I just had this conversation on the phone the other day. She's also a nurse. She's an administrator at a hospital. And we were talking about why we chose nursing and why we became nurses. And for myself, it's the best decision that I made in my life. And why is that? It's because we get to work with the general public. We get to work with patients. You care, you get to care for patients. As nurses, we have to be compassionate. We have to be empathetic and caring for people is something that's rewarding. There's no dollar sign that you can put to the reward that you get for caring for patients.
And again, what I said, and you see them improve, and you maybe literally in front of your eyes, and then they're grateful.
Right.
Professor Akhtar, do you look at maybe either some students or potential students and say, you know what, you might not have the personality you need to be a nurse, or is it something that can be taught? I'm thinking now about kind of the general sense of caring that Professor Douglas was talking about.
Well, you definitely need those qualities. You need that compassion, you need that caring, because you are dealing with human beings. It's not like, you're working on a vehicle per se, or you're, learning how to make a particular product. You're working with a human being, and it does require certain attributes that maybe a lot of potential students don't have. The compassion piece, the caring piece.
And so maybe you might recommend, for instance, if they were to approach Monroe College, you could say, well, you could take medical assisting or medical administration
absolutely.
or something else.
Right.
You could certainly be in healthcare, but
Absolutely.
maybe nursing isn't for you. This is a very interesting thing, and I know we have a photograph of some of the male nurses. There is now a trend toward men to get into nursing. Tell me a little bit about that.
It is actually a phenomenon that's happening, and I've never experienced anything like this, and I don't even think on a nationwide scale. However, our incoming class at Monroe College this past semester, our incoming class out of, I think, 18 students?
16 students, and
Yeah.
half of them are males.
50% of them
Yes.
are male students, which is
50%?
Yes.
unprecedented.
Now, is it because, and I don't know if I should ask the man or the woman, is it because they like the profession, or frankly, there are jobs available in
I
nursing?
think it's a combination.
Yeah.
I think it's a combination. I think now society is like more accepting to view nursing as not just a female, career. Men can actually go into nursing. And also, too, yes, it has a lot to do with us being in a shortage and us being in a recession and people actually being able to have a job in healthcare. It's security. It's a job security for a lot of people.
Is there a difference, and again, I don't know who I should ask this question, so maybe each of you wants to weigh in. Is there a difference in, number one, teaching a male nurse to be a nurse, and then are there things they would need to know that would be different from what maybe a female nurse, more traditional nurse
Well,
would
the
need to know?
training is the training. So a
Correct.
nurse is a nurse. So it does not matter if you're a male or a female. So we would train you exactly the same way. The attitudes may be a little bit different and the behaviors may be a little bit different because, you men sometimes, have this ego and you have, this I know it all. So sometimes teaching may be a little bit different as far as behaviors and
Well,
attitudes.
let's ask Professor Axelbank about it. Does that kind of thing come up, that you have to relearn some of the traditional things and, frankly, be more motherly or more traditionally caring that you would associate with a female or a mother?
Historically, nursing has been a female-dominated profession, and one of my students put it best, and he's a male student, and he said, men care too. So he put it just like that out there, and I said, he's absolutely correct. Men care too, and sometimes they are not awarded that recognition. However, we certainly do.
Beforehand, I was asking you, before we went on the air, I was asking you about the Monroe College nursing program, and both of you were enthusiastic. We'll start with you, Professor Akhtar. Why are you enthusiastic about this program? There are programs here at Lehman where we shoot the show, and,
Sure.
and many other colleges, and they're wonderful programs. What characterizes the Monroe program, and why do you like it so much for teaching nursing?
Well, one of the potential benefits of the program is that it is what's referred to as a 1+1 program. In essence, what that means is that it's, yes, a 2-year program. However, the nursing student, when first coming on board, in their first year, they receive all of the content and education and the skill sets for them to sit for their NCLEX PN, which is the licensed practical nurse. Then in the second year, they will receive all the education and the skill sets to allow them to sit for the RN boards, or the registered professional nurse.
So it's well organized, is what you're telling
It's
me.
extremely well organized, and New York has very few 1+1 programs. But this program allows the student to actually, after the first year alone, enter into the workforce. So allowing them to contribute towards
to
healthcare.
get to work right away.
As an
Correct.
LPN.
And you were also enthusiastic about the curriculum. The curriculum seems to do very well because the numbers are showing that more than 93% of the students who attend Monroe pass the state exams. Why do they do so well?
Because of the curriculum. The curriculum is actually a testament to our passing rates. And if you don't have a good curriculum, you'll see a lot of students not passing that licensure their first try.
What makes it a good curriculum?
Well, first and foremost, as Salil had said, it's a 1+1 program. So in the beginning, they're trained as licensed practical nurses.
Right off the bat.
Right off the bat. So they're taking courses like A&P, they're taking courses like medical surgical nursing, psychiatric nursing, all the things that they'll be exposed to in the clinical arena. Not only are they in lecture, but they're also in the clinical setting. So with each course, they have a clinical component tied to it. So they're getting the lecture, the theory, and the content, and along with that, they're getting a clinical experience so that they can tie those two together.
And that's done and certainly the Bronx has some of the greatest hospitals
we have
Oh, yes.
in the world, whether
Yes.
it be Montefiore or St.
We have
Barnabas, and that's where they work.
affiliations. Exactly.
I want to show a picture. Jane, put up the next picture, which is of this pinning ceremony. Is this unique to Monroe College, or is this done everywhere? Explain what this is. This is a young lady who has just achieved her RN getting pinned. What is that about?
Well, it is very unique to Monroe because a lot of colleges have done away with the pinning ceremony, and it's very important to the nursing profession because it's a sign, it's something that Florence Nightingale has done several years ago in the 1900s when she was a nurse for the soldiers in the Crimean War. And the pinning ceremony is very important. It's a step into the profession as nurses. You see the candles, the lighting of the candle.
Yeah, we have pictures of that too. Let's put that up. Go ahead.
Okay. The lighting of the candle is the signal is what Florence Nightingale done when she was caring for the patients in the war. So that just signifies your profession and you going into nursing and caring for the ill and caring for patients.
How do you teach the notion of caring? Or is that something that you can't teach and either you have it or you don't have it?
Well, it's
That's a difficult question.
It's definitely an inherent
Yes.
trait, no question about that. There are some roots that are inherent, but it is also something that can be fostered. It can be, enhanced. No question about that.
And we are going to show just some incredible technology that Monroe College has put in. I have a question. This is such a crazy question. But when I get my blood taken, I never look. In other words, they take. So I want to know what percentage of patients that you're aware of either look or don't look. Because I think I'm in the minority. I figure everybody wants to see. I can't stand to look.
I would say greater than 50% don't look.
Right.
Don't look.
Don't look.
Jane, do you look? Jane never looked at. So
I would say about 40% don't look.
well, that's why we have nurses, because they look and they're.
We have to.
We need to know.
Now the students that go through Monroe's program and any college's program, this is not an easy thing because, and I mentioned that for a reason. I don't want somebody sticking a needle into my arm unless they are really good at it. And number one, it's going to hurt. Number two, we certainly don't want to damage anybody.
Sure.
So, tell me about the difficulties and getting through the difficulties of becoming a nurse. Then we're going to show these incredible pictures of this technology, we'll put it all together for you.
Well, one of the things that Monroe has, which is fantastic, is that we have a large number of clinical hours within the program, within the curriculum, as Professor Douglas pointed out. So what that means is that our students, when they enter into the work field, they already have that experience. They already have those skill sets, and as a result, they're much more comfortable.
So it's not a mystery when they go into the
absolutely
workforce.
not.
And what I wanted to add to that was also the clinical simulation that we have at Monroe. That's another component that the students can practice on, in the lab setting.
Right. Well, this leads right into this whole idea of, and it's called SimMan, which I guess is so. Let's put up the picture. And Professor Akhtar, and that is Professor Douglas working with a student there. Who is SimMan? What is Sim? It's SIM, SimMan, and what is that about?
SimMan 3G, he is the latest out there on the market. It's a Lairdale product, and in essence, it was first developed by the military for simulation for healthcare. And
So who is it? Let's put up that we have a close up.
well, his name is Harry.
Harry.
His name is Harry.
His name is Harry. We had a naming ceremony, and back in I think it was November, December, or something.
But
like
what
that.
does he do? What does he do?
He mimics every live scenario that you can think of that a student or a nurse would be exposed to in the hospital setting. So we can put him into congestive heart failure. We can make his heart rate go up and make him become tachycardic. We can put him into pulmonary edema. So the whole essence of SimMan is to expose the student to real live clinical scenarios.
We have some more pictures, folks. They can just put up those pictures while you're talking. Go ahead.
It exposes them to real life clinical scenarios so that once they get into that hospital setting, they're not so anxious and unsure because they've seen this before. And it sort of helps to decrease that anxiety.
Well, what is amazing, and I've seen this thing, and here you see a student, he's patting his head because he's sweating.
Yes.
You can list some of the functions that you can make
Sure.
this, I say this person, it is a robot, really, but...
Well, he's completely wireless. The only wire that you have to sometimes put in him is to charge up his battery. So that's basically.
Well, I need that sometimes too, frankly. You know.
So he has fluids within him which can be circulated all over his body to simulate sweating, to simulate bodily fluids for bleeding. You're able to catheterize him. He goes through shock. He goes through convulsions.
And so then the students can say, okay, this person is sick, and then they have to literally measure as you would a real person.
A real patient.
Absolutely.
Professor Douglas, have you seen a change since Monroe College got Harry in the house? Have you seen a change in their abilities or their proficiencies in nursing?
Definitely. As I said, when you bring students into the lab, it gives them that exposure to real live experiences. And what happens is when you take them into the clinical setting, you see them a lot more confident at the bedside when they're providing patient care. And I actually go into the clinical setting and I work with students.
Like at some of the Bronx
At
hospitals?
some of the hospitals, St.
or
Barnabas,
somewhere.
Montefiore, the VA
Right.
hospital, Hebrew Home. And you really see them really having a high confidence level at the bedside and feeling like, wow, I've done this with Harry before. I know what this is. So
And you see the confidence in the students. See,
I
that's a very
do.
important
I
thing.
do.
I think any of
Extremely.
us sitting in a hospital room don't want a quivering first-time nurse.
Exactly.
But if the nurse feels comfortable.
Absolutely.
Now, and here's this always makes me think of the Wizard of Oz. Here's the picture of Professor Akhtar, who is in I guess a room. Describe what it
the
is that
control
you're
room.
doing here. This is the control room.
The laptop that's in front of me is actually Harry's laptop, and with that I can control his bodily functions as well as controlling his voice, controlling his convulsions, etc. It's the beauty of the simulation is that we can recreate what we have seen in the clinical setting.
You know, I
For
was
all
in
of our
there. I
students.
was in there, as you know, and I saw one of these settings, and so the students are gathered around this patient, and then he says something like, "Don't touch me."
Right.
Correct.
That is, I mean, you know, as someone who doesn't know much about it, I would say, go get the nurse. I wouldn't know what to do. How do you deal with that? And I'm guessing that is a very good teaching situation because somebody uncomfortable may react that way with a nurse.
Exactly.
You wanna
And it's so
explain that?
funny that you say that because not all patients are going to be accepting of you caring for them. So one of the things that you have to do is you have to create scenarios where you're going to have a patient that's not that acceptant to you providing care. And one of the classes that we have in Monroe College, and I'm sure a lot of other nursing programs have this course, is effective communication and therapeutic communication skills. And that's something that we teach students from the very beginning. So you're going to have to learn how to not take things personally because when people are sick, not all people are going to be very welcoming and accepting of you caring and touching on them.
Especially when they have pains and they're not
Yes.
feeling well
Yes,
and their relatives
you know,
around, who knows.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Give me an example of what a student might say in first reaction to something like that, and then how you would correct what they would say. Like if they say, "Don't touch me," what would be a normal reaction from a student?
Well, normal reaction from a student, or what we would try to impose upon them, would be, well, I can understand that you're very upset right now. I can give you a few minutes, then I can come back and we can try again.
Take a deep breath or
some
something.
students
Sure.
jump and they'll look and they'll say, "Professor, what do I do right now?"
I was ready to say it right now.
Some students will jump and they're like, "Professor, what do I do right now?" And I think what Professor Salil said is very important. You know, you have to just give people a few minutes. You know, okay, I understand you're upset. I understand you're in a lot of pain, but I'm here to help you, and I would like to relieve your pain. I don't want you to be in a lot of pain. So if you want me to come back in a few minutes, I can come back in a few minutes.
You know, it's very interesting what you presented, that if a student does it in the classroom or at Monroe, I would much rather have them say, "Professor Douglas, what do I do?"
Yes.
versus standing there with a live patient who really is in
Exactly.
some discomfort at Bronx Lebanon Hospital, and then they look, "Supervisor, what do I do?" And that's not a good situation.
And that's the
No,
beauty
absolutely.
of the sim lab.
There's another aspect of this sim man who actually came with a wife or with a woman. We can show a picture of that, and
Kelly, that's
Professor
Kelly.
Douglas will let you explain what this is. This is a pregnant woman.
Correct. Kelly is a pregnant simulator.
Kelly, all right.
Kelly,
It's a
and the
Harry and
baby
Kelly
is
show.
called Jordan. The baby is Jordan.
And there's a baby in there.
Right, and we're actually the first college in the nation, right?
Yeah, we were the
to
first college in the
receive
nation.
Kelly. And Kelly is a pregnant simulator who can go through all the stages of pregnancy. She actually can deliver the baby, and she actually can give birth. So the students have an opportunity to see Kelly birthing a patient. And this is so important because a lot of the times in the L&D suites, not all students get that exposure to actually visually seeing a labor or seeing a mom go through the labor process, because you know it's hit or miss in the labor and delivery room.
At what point, just to move off from some of that, and it's easy to see how that technology would work and be an incredible teaching tool when you want to really get people to really be able to do. At what point in their education do nurses specialize? Because there are nurses who work in all the different areas of the hospital, and they seem to do well in those. Where does that come in somebody's education? And I would think that's a vital part of the education.
It is a vital part of the
We'll give
education.
you each a chance. Explain, so go ahead.
Well, after the end of 2 years, you're considered to be what's called a GP, or a general practitioner. You have had all of these skill sets and all of the education to become a general practitioner, and that's what you're tested on. Once you get hired in your respective discipline, whether it be something like ICU in the ER, in psych, for example, then you really learn the more intricate details of that particular discipline. So it might be a 6-month process, it might be a whole year-long process.
Is that done at Monroe College or at a higher level?
The training is
Right.
the same. Everyone gets the same nursing training and the nursing skills. When you graduate from nursing school is when you decide what specialty you want to go into. Okay, but everybody gets the same nursing training in school. So your specialty does not begin until you actually work.
Correct.
Oh, I see.
Right.
This is a general question about, people are very close about the nature of nursing and how it functions within a hospital. People are very close to their nurses, and for obvious reasons, because that's the person who delivers the care. Then the doctor comes in. Describe the relationship between nurses and doctors. Describe a healthy one or an unhealthy one. I mean, I know I'm getting right into the politics of what really goes on, but both of you are teaching now, so describe how that works, how it doesn't work, and what's a good scenario, and how students need to really deal with that kind of thing.
Well, it can be kind of like a love-hate relationship, almost.
I got some giggles right here on the set. I knew where I was going.
Well, it can be a relationship that is fantastic and it leads to definite positive patient outcomes. Or it could be a relationship that's very negative, in which, patient satisfaction as well as patient outcomes can be hindered.
I think one of the things we teach in nursing is how to work with a multidisciplinary team. And what that involves is doctors, nurses, social workers, respiratory therapists, and all of us working together to promote positive patient outcomes. And as Sal said, it can be a positive relationship with members of the team, and it can be a negative one. Because we're all human, and not all personalities do mix.
My sense is, from relatively limited contact with hospitals for reasons, health reasons, is that now more than ever, people can feel better about going into hospitals because they seem to understand the whole picture, whereas before there was a lot more kind of grappling, and obviously there are better institutions than others, but my sense is this whole idea of care from the top down is better understood maybe than ever before. Am I wrong?
No.
Oh,
No.
it really is better
No, and I
understood.
think that has a lot to do with this multidisciplinary approach. We all play a vital part in caring for the patient. So it doesn't
And
matter.
hospitals, the administrations understand that.
Of course, we all play a pivotal part. Doctors and nurses and social workers.
Professor Akhtar, what's the relationship between, and you talked earlier about the curriculum and the value of curriculum and a good curriculum, what's the relationship between the curriculum and the development of the curriculum at Monroe and maybe new developments that are happening in healthcare, which as we speak, we just had something new that was invented. How do you keep up with the trends and what do you do to stay current?
Well, that's one of the things that is constantly looked at. At Monroe College, we have a curriculum committee, so new advances in technology, new disciplines or new areas, new avenues, which are now being, let's say, for example, tested on the national exam. All that stuff is looked at. So we have a curriculum committee that meets on a regular basis. As a matter of fact, myself, Professor Douglas, and our chairperson, Jennifer Ort, we're all part of this curriculum committee, and we take a look at all these things and find out, well, where exactly within the curriculum should we introduce this? Where exactly should we then reintroduce this? So
And it's done all the time.
correct.
Yeah.
On an
Professor
ongoing
Douglas, we're
basis.
going to give you the last moment here. We'll put up the phone number for Monroe. There is room for students who want to become nurses.
Correct.
And I guess there are jobs out there for nurses.
There's
So why don't you
definitely
summarize
jobs
why
for
they
nurses. Nursing is a wonderful, wonderful career. If anyone is interested in becoming a nurse, please give us a call at Monroe College. We do have slots available. It's a very great program. Our pass rate is very high. We're about 95% pass rate, 94% pass rate.
But that's not magic. They don't just walk in and pass.
Of course
You
not.
work.
It's a process.
Absolutely.
It's a process, and it's hard work. Nursing is a very difficult curriculum. Nursing is a very difficult program, so it's a hard program.
Professor Sal Akhtar and Professor Rondine Douglas, on behalf of all the patients in New York City and throughout the country, we thank you for the great work you're doing at Monroe College.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Folks, if you have further questions or comments on anything you heard on tonight's show or anything going on in the Bronx, then email them to us at BronxTalk@hotmail.com, and we'll read those on the air during a future edition of our program. Archives of our program are available at bronxnet.org. You click a Bronx Talk right on the right-hand navigation bar. You can see a lot of our old shows. Next Monday night, we'll be here, of course, back at 9 o'clock for Bronx Talk on Monday night. Thanks to producer Jane Folloro, our director tonight, John Moran, and the cast of thousands up in the booth and around us in the studio. And to you, good night.